some of you have come up to the table over there and have talked to me about it, heard some things. We want to give you a rundown of Agenda 21, not in 100% detail, otherwise we'd be here for a 2-day seminar. But we want to give you the background of Agenda 21, where it came from, what it is today, how it's affected you, and what you can look for in your community. The other thing is we're not going to just tell you about it. We're going to give you a challenge and an opportunity to do something about it. It's no good to know things and not take any action. So this is what we're going to show you. Again, Agenda 21 is a big high thing. I guess most of you have heard about smart meters. In this part of the state, I'm not sure about wind generation, but over in the eastern part of Illinois, this is an extremely hot subject. People are up in arms over these wind generators. We'll be touching on some of that also because it's all part of Agenda 21. I want you to notice a couple of things. I want you to notice the wreath. Now that looks like a hedge. That comes from a reprint that we have available for you for your use. But there's certain things about this that I want you to look at. Agenda 21 is also tied into something called ICLEI, and this is how it comes into your town. Again, look at the wreath. Agenda 21 is a threat to your freedom. I want you to compare some wreaths. This is from some new friends of ours, as of the so-called 80s and 90s. It's a Soviet emblem. Look at the wreath. We have one more. Peace wreath of the United Nations. And what's the connection with these things? The idea of a peace wreath is everything is kumbaya, everything's real nice, and if we all work together, things will just be so much fun you can't stand yourself. But where did Agenda 21 come from and when? Well, this is the beast on the East River. The East River, Harlem River, and the North Hudson River all form the bays of New York City. This building was built on property that was given to the United Nations by the Rockefeller family and the Rockefeller Foundation. And there's some interesting history about the United Nations. And why am I talking about the United Nations? What you'll see in Agenda 21 is the United Nations is not coming down your street, but they're going to show you how, or I'm going to show you how the United Nations is interposed into your lives. A little background on the United Nations. Some of you may be old enough to remember a guy named Roger Hess, who was a proven and convicted communist spy. He was in Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration, and also worked with Harry Truman, but he was also the first UN General Secretary. If you will read some books, and here are some books that you can look at. Fearful Master. How about Tom Luis's book, Now Tell Me I Was Wrong? Or the New American Magazine that we have, all talk about the history of the United Nations. And the Fearful Master, by the way, is a free download at www.jbs.org. If you go to there, and that's going to be a website I'll refer you to a lot. It's a free download of the story of the United Nations. You'll see the communist background of the communism. And the internationalists used and created the United Nations for specific purposes. Well, one of the specific purposes was come up in 1992 with the Earth Summit. And the Earth Summit is where Agenda 21 comes from. By the way, here's Mr. Hess in a suit while he's smirking before the Senate subcommittees and subsequently in his new suit after he was convicted. Now, what's so nice about the United Nations? They've done some wonderful things for people. Here's an instance of what they've done. Here's two Belgian soldiers from Belgium under the UN, and there they are tormenting a Somali person who eventually died from these wounds and this aggravation. There's a lot of other bad things that have occurred in the Somalia incident. This is from 46 Angry Men, which is another book you can find on Amazon.com. It's about 46 doctors who complained about what was going on and what the UN did in the Belgian Congo in the 1960s. This is also copies from our book, The Fearful Master. was going communist, but there was a province in the Belgian Congo called Katanga. And Katanga was very pro-Western, a very strong Christian community and province. And they did not want to they wanted to secede from the Belgian Congo and become like America. They wanted to be Westernized. Well, the UN said, we can't have this. They went in there and saw to it that the Katangese were defeated and their leader was defeated and became under the rule of the communists who took over the Belgian Congo. And if you notice up there, it says, this is from a Colonel Mitra of the United Nations, who was a UN officer. He was from India. He said, as for me, I'm not taking white prisoners. I ordered my men to kill all Europeans and to finish off the wounded. This is from a nation that has been part of, or had been part of the British Congo for a couple of centuries, or a century. Well, then let's get into the Agenda 21 in the Earth Charter, Rio 1992. By the way, this year, 2012, is the 20th anniversary of the Rio Summit that gave us Agenda 21. You're going to hear about Rio Plus 20 in the next few months. Things are going to really get hot on the news channels and all the TV about the great things they're going to be doing down there in Rio to celebrate 20 years of this. Well, what did we get from the Rio Convention? This is from the 1992 New American Magazine. We got the Convention on Climate Change. We got the Convention on Biological Diversity, and we got Agenda 21. The first two are things they want to do. The third one is the implementing instructions. And you can find this if you can find our magazine. This is the old 1992 version. We sent our senior editor, William M. Jasper, down there to do the research and the reporting. There's a picture of our magazine. You can see some, I don't know if you can see some characters here. We'll be talking about those in a little bit. Part of what we have is family planning came out of Agenda 21. And there's a book called Sustainable America. And here's some words about what it has to say. Now, family planning also ties in with food distribution, where you're going to live, and we'll run into this as during our discussion here. But population reduction and control, we're going to talk more about that. And that's part of family planning. Well, here's Agenda 21. Now, Agenda 21, you could not get this publication for quite a while. And then there was a young environmental lawyer, David Sitarz, S-I-T-A-R-Z, who wrote his own version or a thumbnail sketch, so to speak, but it was pretty much the full thing. And it became popular. Now, if you are a friend of the United Nations, which I'm not, you can send them $20-some odd, and they'll send you their copy now. You can learn right online from the UN itself if you want to send them your money. And they'll send you a copy of Agenda 21. Otherwise, if you buy me a Coca-Cola, I'll give you my PDF copy, okay? Cheap. Also, if you notice, this little book on the right, the local Agenda 21 planning guide. I don't know if you can see the bottom 5 letters in the center. That's ICLEI. So we're going to be talking about again. ICLEI. So you have Agenda 21, and then how we're going to get into your neighborhood and my neighborhood, because people don't want to see some blue helmet or white painted vehicle with big black UN letters on the side coming in here to enforce some building code or some land use code. How are we going to get this over to people? One of the things that we get from this, and what's so good about environmentalism? Well, how about light bulbs? Everybody knows who Nancy Pelosi is in this room, correct? The wild-eyed woman from California. Well, she, during the Bush administration, and Bush went along with this, we can't have incandescent light bulbs in our homes after 2015? 14, okay. Try me. So what do you do? We have to buy these new bulbs. These new bulbs cost $5, roughly, plus tax. They're filled with neurotoxins, and they're mandated. Well, these are supposed to be better bulbs, so if anybody even looked at the physiology of these things and how these bulbs actually cause illness. This new stuff, because of the frequency of the bulb, I don't know how it all works. There's a frequency that is put out, not an audio, but a visual frequency. Also, Johnny's playing baseball in the house, okay? It's spring's coming up here. He's getting ready to go for Little League. He's throwing the ball around and he crashes in a lamp and he busts one of your 100-watt light bulbs next to your reading lamp, okay? So what do? You get out of the dustpan. Johnny, don't move, but I don't want you to get cut. Get out of the dustpan and then get out the vacuum cleaner and you clean it up and throw it in the trash. If Johnny breaks one of these new bulbs, according to the law, you will have to call in a hazmat team. Now, how many of you can afford $50,000 or $100,000 to have your home quarantined and have all the hazmat come in and do this stuff? You know? This is collateral damage that someone either is not paying attention to, had no clue what's going to happen, or they don't care. And with the Pelosi, I'll say all three, all the above. This is just something of a breeding technology that's just going to be so much fun. Now, I'm old enough to remember battery or electric cars, and I remember that from as a young man. And I don't think I've ever seen one maybe such a popular mechanics. But here's a picture of a 1904 battery-powered vehicle built in Germany. Okay? It's not new technology, but I believe it was Mr. Edison or some of those folks who said way back when that these things are not viable, they're not economical because you can't make a good enough battery, the batteries aren't good, the cars are too heavy. Even in those days they were saying no good. Also, what's that little shed thing that they make?
Volt?
Yeah, the Volt. Now, I understand is a lot of people are buying Volts, but you know who the people who are buying the Volts are? They're the people who already own an SUV, a sports car, one or two other family cars, and these are just trinkets that they buy. And they're not using them all the time, and they live out of town, so you can't drive the car too far anyway. It's mostly a boutique item, okay? Something that the new Reach and all this stuff have to have because it just complements the clothes of their outfit. In the 1st century AD, here's a copy of a wind engine, or not a wind engine, but an instrument of some kind of wind. So solar and wind power is not new stuff. Did you know that my grandmother and my mother used solar and wind power energy for their laundry when I was a kid? There you go. Now, I almost lived in places like this. It's pretty close to where we used to live back in Jersey, where I'm from. But that's how they used to do it. Grandma and Mom, you care whatever floor you had on, you had a string between you and the neighbor's house across the alley. You just went back and forth, and you had your solar-powered wind energy drying machine. By the way, where I live in Indianapolis, I'm not allowed to have one of those things because they look so terrible in the neighborhood. So I can't even use solar and wind power in my own neighborhood now because it's not aesthetically pretty. Windmills are coming up. And part of it is the subsidy for windmills is due to be deliberated on next year to Congress, so they're going to renew the subsidy. So guess what our friends at GE are doing? They're saying, why don't we put solar panels out in our big windmill fields? Have you guys seen the windmill fields? Mm-hmm. These monsters, Mercer. Oh, by the way, how many windmills are windmill? Is that a good investment?
No. Not so much.
There's some others there. You guys are how many miles from the Mississippi? 10 miles or so? There's a thing that came out of it was after the UN conference called the Lost Treaty, the Law of the Sea Treaty. And the Law of the Sea Treaty, in a nutshell, is to cover everything on fresh and saltwater, wetlands, all these other things. So, if you have a property here in Toledo or over in Joy, or maybe New Boston's pretty close, so I'll just go the other way right over. You have a property that does not have a creek on it. But I noticed some rolling hills here. So in the summertime, or I should say in springtime, when the thaw comes and you have rain, you have a runoff. That runoff goes somewhere in the creek to the Edwards River, is it? Back across the Edwards River here? And then, of course, it Mississippi. Down the Mississippi, where's Ron? Down the Mississippi to New Orleans, where the Ron played out into the Gulf, and then out into the Atlantic. Under the Lost Treaty, things that happen to run off on your property that are polluted of some kind, the United Nations, if the loss is fully implemented, can come all the way back up the other way to your property that has no running water on it, and it'll affect you. And if you want to find it, it's in Section 3, Chapters 17 and 18 of Agenda 21. But the Law of the Sea Treaty is implementation. Whether it's by design or whether it's by a suggestion, I cannot say. But the closeness of it is pretty remarkable to me. So what are we fighting against? Well, here you have a Charter of the United Nations and the Constitution of the United States. And in a nutshell, the Charter of the United States Nation says, you have freedom to do this and you have freedom to do that and the other as prescribed by law. The Constitution is based on the Declaration of Independence. It says, Congress shall make no law, and that all men are created with certain unalienable rights that government, no matter who they are, who they think they are, or even who the people think they are, cannot take those rights away from you. So we're talking about total and real responsible freedom and the law of the few over the many. Where do some of these ideas come from? Remember the wreaths we were talking about in the creation of the United Nations? And I've got some of these over here on my table, the Congress Manifesto. This is the first 5 planks out of 10. But if you notice, they talk about land use, people, and things like that on this. How about there's some Ron Paul fans here. The 5th one, central bank. I know Ron Paulers don't like central banks. How about Item 4, confiscation of property of all immigrants and rebels? Technically, according to the Minnesota Poverty Law Center, we're all rebels. We already have a heavy tax in your state. It's ridiculous, but that's the 10th Amendment, and the 10th Amendment allows each state to do its own thing, so to speak. These 3 characters on this flag is Marx, Trotsky, and Lenin. And in one word, you reproach us intending to do away with your property, and that's precisely what we want to do. That's just what you can. And the middle class holder of property must be swept out of the way. By the way, forgive me for not laying out part of the basis is the traditional enemy of kings is the middle class. That's you and me. Here's some more bad news. Something that came out of Agenda 21 and the Rio conference is this Commission on Sustainable Development will be established at the UN to monitor national compliance with environmental targets agreed upon at the tops. How are we going to do that? Well, let's do several things. How about if we all go to Japan to Kyoto and have Kyoto Protocol? Okay. This was the United Nations framework for climate change. The major feature of the protocol is that it sets the binding targets on 37 industrialized nations in the European community, in other words, all the producers of the world, to reduce greenhouse gases. These amount to an average of 5% of 1990 levels, and it's supposed to be done this year, 2012. Now it's changed, of course. There's been some adjustments made because these people have got some pushback and said they'll approve this convention, which, by the way, you notice it's not a treaty, it's a convention. It's a little bit different there, and a little bit different in wordings and things, and also makes it a little more confusing for people to decide whether we're bound by this or not. Okay, well, right now we're going to talk about some of the characters behind the scenes here, or in front of the scenes. This is Maurice Strong. Now, Maurice Strong, I was told, made this statement in a cab. Isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilization can collapse? Or is it our responsibility to bring that about? And then he said to the limousine driver, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Now, Maurice Strong's kind of an odd character. He started working as you've never been to the UN, but when you go to some buildings, they have like these guys in uniforms, they check your credentials or your IDs and stuff. Well, this is what he did. So just a young fellow, Maurice Strong, he He's working at the UN. 7 years later, he's the CEO of one of the largest companies in Canada. What happened? Well, he had friends in high places. One of his friends was David Rockefeller, who we're going to talk about a little bit later on. What do we else know about Mo Strong? He and his wife do some different kind of religious practices. They own a property in Colorado. It's 200,000 acres called Baca Grande. And they do a lot of Gaia worship. And Gaia, if you're not familiar with who she is, Gaia is the earth goddess. And we'll talk about her a little bit because it's all tied in with this stuff that we're doing. But he built a temple to some Babylonian earth sun god. And he's also a director of the Temple of Understanding in New York City, which is the Church of St. John the Divine, which is a Unitarian Universalist church. And the society has had its eye on this for a while. It's a rather liberal, to say the least, organization. At one time, Mr. Strong and the man who invented the internet delivered a sermon at this church, at this Temple of Understanding. And I don't know the whole procedure, but it's reported that the people of the congregation came to the altar with bowls of earthworms and compost for whatever their religious service was. And this guy is going to help us understand saving the earth and things. I'm going to give you a statement from our friend, Mr. Strong. And this is what he said in 1992 at the Earth Summit. You and I, we have too much affluence. We eat too much red meat. We use too many fossil fuels. We have too many appliances. We have home and work air conditioning. Oh Lord, who's just saying we can't have that? And he says it's suburban housing are not sustainable. What's suburban housing? You live on your property, you live on your property, I live on my property. Now he's got some friends who were going back to the communist again. Here's a friend of his who made this statement about 5 years ago, I think it was. I am a communist and convinced communist. And for some that may be a fantasy, but this is my main goal. And these guys know each other. Well, 5 years later, at Rio Plus 5, they're having a little chit-chat about something. Something's going on here. Now, there's been some other people. Our senior editor, William Jasper, calls the diaper swamis. You know what the diaper swamis is? You see the pictures of the cartoons with the guy with the flute and the snake or rope comes up out of the basket. The guy's usually skinny. He's got a diaper. It's usually a caricature of Mahatma Gandhi. Well, here's two of the diaper swamis out there. There's Al, who invented the internet, Gore, and he wrote a book called Earth in the Balance. But it's been proven to be such a big lie, especially the hockey stick thing, if you want to check that out. He's created what's called what I call a traveling circus. He's created a thing called the Climate Reality Project. And you may run into that around here. They have people in all different states who will go down to Tennessee to his, whatever he has down there, and learn how to present the dangers of global warming and climate change. And anybody who says it's not true is just a fool and an idiot, etc., etc. And I understand that these people have been at least to Danville, Illinois, and they have also been to, I believe, Bloomington, right where else. But you can go on the Global Reality Project and look up who the facilitator or instructors are for your state. Now, the guy on the right, of course, is the Ketchup Queen's husband, who is also a hero who will be in war on the gunboats, right? Here's another diaper swami. I don't know if you know who that is. Jerry Brown, who never seemed to go away. He was down there doing his environmental thing, and he, by the way, he's the governor who just replaced Arnold Schwarzenegger back in California. Here's a player behind the scenes, Zygmunt Brzezinski, the creator of the Trilateral Commission. But he's also talking about how to control people in a statement, and we cannot leave into a world government in one quick step. What's that talking about? We're talking Agenda 21. This is referring to people control. Now this next slide, I hope you can see it well. I put it in red because to me it's a big deal. I think I might have messed it up. We talked about David Rockefeller. For years, the John Birch Society has been accused of being a conspiracy nut freak place organization. Well, Rockefeller in 2005 or 6, I think it is, wrote his biography. Go on Amazon and look for the, get the book yourself. But here's a quote that proves that we were right while everybody's making fun of the John Birch Society. And I'm not saying this to justify us, but I'm saying that, people do know what they're talking about when he's saying things. He says, for more than a century, ideological extremists at each end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents to attack the Rockefeller family and the inordinate influence we claim, or they claim we wield on American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we're a secret cabal, that's the Council on Foreign Relations, which all these people are members of, working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family to be as internationalists, and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. Now he's saying, hey, I've been accused of conspiring with other people to make a one world government in itself. And then he says, if that's the charge, I'm guilty and I stand proud. Well, thank you finally, Mr. Rockefeller, for confirming everything that the John Birch Society has been telling about you for X amount of years. With the Rockefellers and the Rockefeller Foundation, there are other foundations that supply money to Agenda 21 through this ICLEI that we're coming to talk about. That's Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Forum. These groups get money from Rockefeller and his foundation, the Ford Foundation, there's MacArthur, there's a whole bunch of other foundations you can find. There's a fellow that a lot of people really liked who's also part of this Agenda 21 issue, and he's a World War II hero, Captain Jacques Cousteau. Now Cousteau, he fought the Germans, of course, for his country, and he did a lot of things with the scuba, developing modern scuba techniques and things like that. But he was also in my opinion, a bigot, for one thing. He thought we had too many people in the world. And you can see here what he said about America. In the second paragraph, this is what he's blaming American women on. Okay? You ladies, these ladies are just not nice here, if you read that. This is an Earth Summit speech he gave in 1992. So he was down there saying, look, we got to eliminate 350,000 people from the world every day. But Jacques Cousteau was a coward. And I call him a coward because he felt this way and would not say, I feel so strong about this, I'll go first. And to me, you got to put your money where your mouth is. Well, these three gentlemen have held the headlines for many years, and here's what they did for us on Agenda 21. In 1992, the gentleman on the top left from Texas, he signed the Earth Summit Accords. In 1993, the fellow from Arkansas signed the UN Convention on Biodiversity and again, a convention on a treaty. And just recently, within the last several months, the fellow from Chicago, signed Executive Order 13575, which is the White House Rural Council. Now, you guys are going to come under this. Under this thing, they're doing a lot of nice talk that really means we're going to get you off your land and stick you in the cities. Here's one of the helpers. This guy's J. Gary Lawrence. And you can see what he has to say up here. We can't come out right away and say this is what we want to do, because people will call for a UN. It's a conspiracy. We need to call it other names, and that's why you got things like Agenda 21, using things like comprehensive planning, smart growth management, green space, green ecology, food security, all kinds of sweet-sounding things this as we get deeper into this. It's the global's attempt to impose new environmental regulations aimed at controlling the local and town through city and town through the ICLEI, which was created in 1991, but didn't do anything until after it. And it already includes, there's 562 cities in the United States. There are 18 in Illinois. I think the closest one you have is Rock Island. That's an official member of ICLEI. And I'll show you how you can find this information. Now, don't let this fool you. In my state, there's only 4 cities registered in Indiana. But we know that ICLEI and Agenda 21 are coming to these other cities because remember what this fellow said right there? We can't give it to them straight. Okay? So it's coming into our cities. So here's some things you might run into. This is from the American Geophysical Union. And you go online and find Agenda 21, find so many things about it, you get overwhelmed with the information. But this is what it's to do, is to galvanize a community of Earth and space scientists to collaboratively advance and communicate science and its power to ensure, and here's the key word, the phrase, sustainable future. Sustainable future. X amount of people, only to be X amount of people be allowed to live because you only have X amount of land under cultivation. Here's another group. This is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. It's another left-wing group, and they're using nice words to promote a one world agenda. This is the Global Carbon Project, established in 2091. I wear size 10.5. Is that my carbon footprint? I'm not sure. Okay. Well, what's coming to us? This is Agenda 21, and the different ways it's going to come into what we're doing here. Some of you looked at some of the materials saw a map on the wall. This is the Wildlands Project map, and I believe this is from the 90s. I'm not sure when it came out. The map is used in the United States Senate to stop this map is used to stop the ratification of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, even though Clinton signed it. You see all the red areas? That's where no one is allowed to go if this comes to fruition. The yellow zone, that's highly regulated, which means people and/or agriculture. The gold one, you notice there's no gold line along the Canadian border, but there's a gold line along the Mexican border. That's 200 miles across. So 100 miles into Mexico and 100 miles into the United States. This is the buffer zone. Now, who's going to regulate the buffer zone, or the people who live there from their pre-Spanish and Spanish and American ancestors for hundreds of years? Who's going to tell these people what's going on in their land and what they can do with it? The UN? I don't think so. Now, can you see any green spots? Now, Lake Michigan doesn't count as a green spot. At least to me it looks green. If you see any green spots, in Salt Lake City, same thing, the Great Salt Lake area in Utah, the green spots are normal use. Can you find them? This is where we can do things normally. I guess we plant a flower pot outside or do whatever. And then the pink ones are all Indian reservations. And there's a few gray ones there. There's military reservations. So if you notice, there's not going to be too much room for us. So where are they going to put us? I've got my slides backwards on next to, so I'm going to go here first. Oops. Okay, here's where we are now. Now, that's us on the left for the most part. Various size properties. My giant estate is 100 by 50 foot long. Some of you probably have a much larger bedroom. Okay. And then, can anybody tell me what's wrong with that picture on the left? On your right? As an environmentalist, what would they say? Houses too far apart. There's a swimming pool or two somewhere in there, and there's paved roads. Means runoff. So what they want to do is move us to something these stack them backwards. A lot of places, including Indianapolis and the Super Bowl, have got this, but a lot of towns have it. Carmel, Indiana has one, and I know there's got to be some around in Illinois, somewhere in urban areas, where they shut off all traffic, and you only have foot traffic in there, and you have all your tailor, your barber shop, your beauty shop, your bakery, all the small stores, and these condos are popular. That's one thing. But more than likely, I'm going to say this is what we're going to get. We're going to get socialist left-wing style stack 'em and pack 'em. Cabrini Green, what's the other stuff up here in Chicago and in New York, all these big high-rise where everybody lives under intense anger all the time, and too much noise and things like this. Air conditioning don't work, the heating don't work, and so like that. Government housing. Okay, this is the future for us if we don't stop this thing. And again, I don't have it written down. I'm sorry, where you can find that in the Agenda 21. Now, some other ways is we've got to cut back on our use of carbon fuels. We have to cut down on our hydroelectric, and of course, cannot have nuclear. That's so nasty thing. So what do? We have people going around talking about different things. Now, Rock Valley College, I believe, is somewhere here in the state. I just couldn't find the location. But here's what they're doing this year at Rock Valley, and they're slowly teaching the kids, and everybody wants to know the benefits of environmentalism. Windmills can take up one complete presentation. I'll just tell you a little bit about windmills that I've learned recently from folks here in the state. Number one is there is a health hazard to windmills. Two, there is an environmental hazard to windmills. And number three, there is a lack or loss of freedom when you sign on board to have these windmills come to your property. And they are really nice to have around where your kids are. Here's a windmill going up in smoke. There's 400 gallons of toxic something, liquid, that's in those tanks. They go down to the ground and spill out. Now, if it's on a soybean field or a cornfield, I don't know what it's going to do to that, because you have to call it hazmat. The propeller being hit by lightning, or if the motor breaks, it's called a runaway prop, where there's no control on it, and the prop just spins so it disintegrates. Don't know how far the thing's going to fly. Your setback, your closest setback is 1,400 feet from the house or the next neighbor's property. So if your neighbor has one, he can put one within 1,400 feet of your property, and you have nothing to say about it. Another thing I found out about this is there's some kind of, again, vibration, noise that you can't hear, but it's like a boombox when these young kids go by with screaming radios on their SUVs and boom boxes. It acts like that, although you can't hear it, you can feel it. And right now, I'm trying to find out, I've got a little blurb on how does it affect our food chain? What if it affects us, where people get physically ill from these things, just from the rotation of it? What happens to our beef cattle, our sheep, our hogs, chickens? What does it do to our food supply? Does it do something to their physiology that's going to end up being poisonous for us? Nobody's got that science yet. But again, there's some ladies in Bloomington that can probably give you a whole day seminar just on these things alone. The International Council for Local Initiatives. The Green Initiative, here's some key words to look for in your county or in your city. And we want green initiatives, green space, smart growth, stakeholders, sustainability, community garden, or garden leave, which, by the way, is how these people seriously get our children in church to do good deed projects, and so they inculcate them with Gaianism. Smart meters, wind power, solar power, wind turbines, wave technology, smart cities, sustainable cities, rails to trails, and I can't think of all the other ones that you come up with on this thing. But these are some of the key words. If you see something, it's city council or county commissioners are going to talk about blah, 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 and these are in there, you need to go. And we're going to show you what you can bring with you to kind of help stop this thing. I threw this slide in here just to let you know that this is not an American-only issue. I don't think there's one American on this slide. Okay? This is part of the ICLEI National Leadership. Well, here's a little problem with ICLEI, among other things. The third paragraph of Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution says, no state may enter into a treaty, alliance, or confederation or enter into any agreement or compact with another state or a foreign power. there's been a lot of amalgamation with ICLAI. I want you to notice something very, very key here in the argument. If you will read paragraph 1 of Article 1, Section 10, the word state is capitalized. Whenever you read the Constitution and the word state is capitalized, they're talking about the states of the United States. And it's particular to our own country. When they're talking about the lowercase, they're talking about foreign entities. We're not allowed to go into foreign entities. I should have I've got to go back and edit my statement there and capitalize the first word state there. That's my editorial error when I type that in. Okay, so let me go over that again. The first state word which says no state, that should be a capital S. Dan, you going to verify that for me? Sorry. If it's lowercase, it's talking about foreign countries, the states of the world. Capital state means our states. Okay? Which means it's two different things. Here's what we're getting in school. It could be even in your schools down here, I'm not sure. I think you guys are very much closer to the earth than a lot of people around the Chicago area and some of the urban centers. But here's the problem. The more educated you guys are, and the more higher income, I don't know if we can talk about that one, but we consume more resources than poorly educated people, and I'm not sure how we do that. And lower educated people tend to have lower income. This is what this is saying. In this case, more education increases to a threat to sustainability. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the tables on and say the more we educate ourselves about the dangers of this, yes, it's going to be a threat to sustainability because we're not going to put up with it. This comes from the Education Toolkit. You can find it online. Here's another one from the U.S. Department of Education. This is in the Obama administration. The Department of Education, that's tax funded, by the way, it's not authorized in the Constitution. If you need verification, ask Ron Paul or any member of the John Birch Society will help you with that. The Department of Education is committed or will be a committed partner to a national effort to work on this environmental stuff, be environmentally literate. Now, you may teach your child how to compost. You may teach them how to put in a cover crop and then plow it under in the springtime, but that's not what these people are talking about. They're talking about using too much land, too much light, too much fuel. All the things we've been saying is that these people say is wrong. And that's paid for by your tax dollar. This map here shows the registered, as of late last year, the registered cities in the ICLAI. By the way, if you notice, Indiana had 5, we're down to 4 officially. There was a guy at a collection box. Again, a guy at the Earth Goddess. The collection boxes were in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And one of my colleagues and I saw that when we dropped off some pamphlets at the county commission. The next thing we know is Fort Wayne's not any longer listed on the internet. The boxes are still there, but they're gone. Here in Illinois, this is from September of last year. Your state economic development director and the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Okay, here's your keywords. They're working Agenda 21. They're doing the thing and getting ready to help it out. But there is some good news. Some people have paid attention. There's 3 more cities on here that I know of. There's been 45 that were reported somewhere around the country who have kicked back on ICLAI. And it could be very simple. In May, I think it was, one of the county commissioners was giving a presentation, given one of our pamphlets on ICLAI. She said, I've never seen this before. What is it? And she looked at it. They not only rescinded their membership of ICLAI, but they also closed out their Office of Sustainability, just for one little pamphlet. This is what we're telling you. This is what we're going to conclude with, that there is an action you can take. You just don't have to sit there and later let the chance run over you. We've got a plan that you guys can work on this thing. But you know, some smart meters. things. And you'll notice the last one, St. Joseph, Illinois. Now, St. Joseph, Illinois is probably as big as this town, maybe smaller, but they had 5 of these Gaia collection boxes out there. 3 of them were right next to the mayor's barber shop. Well, 2 of our members went over to see the mayor, brought him our 2 little pamphlets, which you can get over here later on, and you see pictures of them. Those boxes are gone in a week. So it does work. When you talk to the people, you bring it up to the people, and you show them that you're serious, and you also understand what's going on, and you're not beating them over the head. It'll work on this thing. But the last one is what's going on in your town and in your state. I don't know. We're going to show you again how you can find out, and we'll work with you on this thing. So what do you do? Number 1 is got to determine if your city or town is affiliated with Agenda 21. I think Rock Island is the closest one. Mercer County is not. Or is there a sustainable offshoot, like sustainable development or smart growth? Where do you find this? You find this in the Conservation Department, Wastewater Treatment and Water Treatment Commission. Check all the commissions. We have to have people go to there and listen and see what these folks are saying. Because most times, the folks that we put in local government, especially in our government, the nice quiet area that you all live down here, these are your neighbors. They just are misinformed. They're not planning something sinister. They just think it's a good idea. You want to spread the word and tell the people, okay? Carver, Massachusetts did that. They had a great turnout of people, and the city council said, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. Inform your elected officials and opinion owners. Who's an opinion owner? Who's your plumber? Who's the guy who owns the plumbing shop or the building supply shop or the feed store here in town? He is an opinion owner. Visit the town hall or your city hall. Ask questions. Get information. Host a meeting. That's what we're doing now. We're hosting a meeting. This is a much larger one. A lot of people are asking us specifically to come in and show meetings on this thing. And there's more of these things here. And we'll have more as we have more tools to know. This is a reprint that we have available from one of our magazines. They're very inexpensive. They're, I think, $10 for 25. It talks a lot about this, and it's a lot easier to have someone read it rather than you trying to have to explain it, but also help educate you also. This is part of a kit that you can put together. Like I said, it's all over at the table when we're done talking and everybody's released. You come on over and find out what we've got. Distributed copies of a booklet that I'm going to tell you about. Some of you have already seen it. Remember the big map I showed you with all the green space? Okay. That map's in that booklet. These again are fairly inexpensive. This is more detailed information on what it is. Then we have a pamphlet. The pamphlets are very inexpensive. It's one way to really get out of a lot of territory. We're only talking $15 for 100 of these things. 100 houses you can cover, or 100 businesses you can cover. And we ask that people would organize to do this. Now, before we go much further, I want you to understand something. If you want to do something other than just say, well, thank you for a nice, entertaining Saturday afternoon, we're going to have a sign-up sheet. I haven't got it out officially, but we'll find a sign-up sheet to commit. And I've already talked to Ray Lynn. She's not really said no, but she didn't really say yes. But if you guys want to work on this, you're going to work and organize around. So she started it. I'm picking on her to do something if you want to do it. And it's going to be your project. It's not going to be my project. It's not going to be the John Birch Society project. It's going to be your project. All we're going to do is give you any assistance you ask for that we can possibly give you. Okay? Now, write this down if you would. www.jbs.org. And that's our website. Very important. And I'm going to show you a picture of our website soon. This week it's on the freebies. Having the JBS coordinator assist you, that's me. I know you didn't ask for me, but I'm assigned to. The big thing is remember this. These guys never quit. The people who want to see the middle class of America disappear, the people who want to be the rulers of the world, whether they realize it or not, some of them are consciously going for it, others are just in there for the ride because of all the perks they get. They never quit. So we have to keep the faith in what we're doing and keep on target. If we get off target, they win. go to our www.jps.org website, I'm going to direct you to another site where you can download this little manual. It's 13 pages. It's very detailed on how to put together an effective organization to do something. Now, you've got 4 or 5 different organizations here that can really put something together and work as a coalition on this. But here's the website. Now, this is from, I'm just coming into the 21st century. These are my pictures, my screenshots. Okay, you're on the www.jps.org website. You'll see on the right side, you see the Agenda 21 symbol. There's several of these that are going to move along, different projects that we do. When that comes up, click on Learn More and after that. You'll come up, this is the top half of the web page. You'll come up to the web page, which is our Stop Agenda 21 web page, and you see this with a picture of Mr. Arthur Thompson, our CEO, on there. He has a video and some words. But the bottom of the web page is where I really want you to pay attention. See the 3 red bars? There's a lot of free downloads on there. On the right-hand side is the 3 red bars. It says Take Action. The first one that's below that is that's the manual I just told you about, the rollback manual. The next one under there is by Mr. Tom DeWeese. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Mr. DeWeese. He's a very knowledgeable, intelligent intellect and hard fighter for the right things. But in this, he teaches you how to conduct yourselves and what to watch out for if you go to not only the city or county council meetings, but if you have to go to a place that's presenting Agenda 21 favorably. And this will teach you to go in as a cohesive unit and make those people go home crying to mommy because you just totally destroyed their credibility and you didn't even raise your voice. Okay? And we can sit down and I can show you how to do some of this stuff. There's other things on here that you can get. There's videos, there's other things on this one page under those 3 bars. It's all free. By the way, if you want to join the website for free, you can do that, get a few extra things. All you need to do is put in your own, choose your own password and email, and they'll say, hey, welcome to the John Birch Society website, you know, officially electronic demo, whatever it's called. Okay? There's no obligation or anything like that. This is really important stuff, and I've got a sample of the rollback manual that I printed out for myself that I use for teaching and stuff. We have a petition campaign, and along with this thing, the petition is on this page here. It's either PDF or it's in Word. I like Word because you can change it for your particular town or county. And then, again, call me up. I've got a business cards here, and I want to schedule to come out, and come out and talk. You really want to do something, we can set things up. And the next thing I have here is a petition, a copy of the petition. I don't have any here for you, but you can download it yourself. The big thing is Agenda 21 is a United Nations created monster. There are people who think that they're better than we are. I don't know how else to say that we should not have the freedoms that we have. We should not have the ability to live as well as we do, and that we need to become a third world country. And this is a major step in doing this. Okay? I'm going to answer questions at the table so we can keep on going with the show, right? Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it, and I'm going to get out of the way and help set up for our game session. Thank you.